Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Raiders Daily. My name is Jackson. I post daily Raiders content, so hit that like button, hit that sub button if you guys enjoy it. The Las Vegas Raiders, for the first time this season, are streaking back-to-back wins. Yesterday was a complete and utter shootout. The defense still has a bunch of holes, but boy, oh boy, Josh Jacobs can run, and this offense is starting to click. The last 2 weeks, the offensive line has looked incredible. Derek Carr, especially towards the end of the game, and keep in mind, man, Seattle, they have a pretty good defense. They have a really solid defensive line, guys who can get to the quarterback, get him down, get those hits, get those sacks. He had a lot of time to throw, all right? And Josh Jacobs, the offensive line, man, dude, gotta give props. Jacobs obliterated the Seattle Seahawks defense, especially in overtime with that long, 80-yard run. 576 total yards. Now, it wasn't all pretty. All right, there were a couple of turnovers first play of the game. Derek Carr just, shake it off, right? A fumble, interception. Thankfully, Keelan hopped right back on that ball. The second interception, Derek Carr wasn't, there were a couple of other things that went into it. I would say the first one was definitely on him. Second one, I don't really think necessarily, although I guess it kind of is because it happened. Anyways, this is awesome. 4-7 now. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. All I'm saying is it's not impossible. All right, the Raiders could definitely run the table here. We'll make a video on it later on in the week, but got the Chargers next week, and then you have 3 straight primetime games. And if it's anything like what I saw in the first 3 quarters, or the first half, I guess I should say, against Kansas City back on the 10th of October. I'm feeling confident because they play the Rams, who are miserable right now, New England, Pittsburgh, who's also miserable. Then they finish off the season, a difficult opponent in San Francisco, very difficult opponent in San Francisco, but they're at home. Then you finish it off with Kansas City. So the way I see it is the Raiders, if they go 10-7, they win their final 8 games, 6 more games, you're in the playoffs. All right, you're just in the playoffs. That's how it would go. And the way I see it is also, if Minnesota Vikings, if Kirk Cousins, if they can do it this year, I think anybody can do it. So defensively, that's where you're going to find the most issues. However, one thing that was great, before we get into this video, if you guys enjoy it, do you like daily Las Vegas Raiders content, hit that like button, hit that sub button for more. One thing you got to love was just the pressures. Max Crosby really sealed this game. He was a huge reason why they won the football game. He finished with a sack and a half. You also have Bilal Nichols get there with half a sack, and Andrew Billings with 1 sack. So they attacked, man. They got to the quarterback. They got to Geno. They forced turnovers. Denzel Perryman with a nice interception. That front line, that defensive line, I thought they did an incredible job. Now, the linebackers, they are not great at guarding the pass, so it was, final score 40-34. I think it was 10 of those points were were turnovers. Yeah, 10 of those were like points from turnovers. And, first interception, first play of the game was an interception. So I guess 24 points if you had no interceptions, if you had not made those mistakes. But it doesn't always have to be pretty, right? It definitely doesn't always have to be pretty. The officiating on both sides was interesting. I guess they kept it consistent, but it was definitely interesting to say the least. Chandler Jones, I think it's very evident that the Raiders are going to have to get more edge help this offseason. Chandler Jones, the signing hasn't necessarily worked out. He's only got half a sack on the year, but he did have a fumble recovery yesterday. Not perfect. That really is the thorn on the Raiders' side, is the defense. Offensively speaking, they currently are all the way up to 10th in offense. Now, we were making videos, or I was making videos, and a lot of Raiders fans, a lot of Raiders creators were saying this. Raiders creators, wow, rhymes. A lot of us were saying the same thing. This could very well be a top 5 offense, and I still honestly think by the end of the season, they definitely can be a top 5 offense. You're playing the Chargers, you're playing the Rams, you're playing New England, you're playing Pittsburgh. Next 4 games, you're playing some struggling teams, you're playing some struggling defenses. So, currently putting up 24 points. The issue is, they're the 26th best, or I guess worst defense in the NFL, giving up over 25 points a night. The good news is no matter how this season ends, there are plenty of things to be excited about. I mean, Josh Jacobs literally was just an absolute superstar yesterday, rushing for over 200 yards. Derek Carr, 3-touchdown game. Got to clean up those interceptions. But at the end of the day, Josh Jacobs is having just an insane career year. Over 1,159 rushing yards with 9 touchdowns. That's over 105 per game. Davante Adams is just barely under the 1,000-yard mark as far as reception yard goes with 999 and 10 touchdowns. Shout out to Matt Collins. He is the second leading receiver on this team, or actually tied as far as receptions go with Josh Jacobs. But Matt Collins has been a refreshing breath of fresh air. That didn't make any sense. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, they should be back from IR. They're going to be eligible to come back from the IR by that Rams game in a couple of weeks. So that's something to take note of, man. If you can play this next game and get the victory, if you can take down the division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers, I mean, you're 5-7. You've won 3 straight. You're getting healthy again. Like I said, man, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if it happened, or I at least think they're going to give it a run for their money. I would not be surprised at all if this team got all the way back to 500. If you go into the last couple of weeks, you're 8-7. You got San Francisco, a very difficult game, but like I said, it's a rivalry game. You're at home. The way the Raiders have looked against good opponents, they found ways to win so far. All right, they've won 2 close games now, back-to-back weeks, which is something we had not seen at all so far at the start of the year. But there's just plenty of things to be excited about on the offensive side. The offensive line has just looked so much better than we did at the start of the season. Derek Carr, this locker room is not gone. There were some questionable play calls by Josh McDaniels, particularly the last possession of the first possession, actually, I guess, of... Actually, he could do a whole bunch of different... We won't even get into that. We'll save that for another video, but, there were times where, like first drive of the overtime, right, was aggressive before you got past the 50-yard mark, and then once you get to the 50-yard mark, it was just a lot more timid, wasn't aggressive at all. So, that's a good example there. The way they ended regulation, I would have liked to see some shots, but I guess at the end of the day, they have had some turnover. Derek Carr did throw some picks in the first half of the game, so you want to just play it safe and see how they look or just take it to overtime and see how it goes. So it's not always going to be perfect, and it's not always going to be pretty, but I will not complain with 40 points, and I will not complain with the way the offense looked in every facet. So that's it for me today. If you guys enjoyed it, hit the like button, hit that sub button. But guys, I want to hear your thoughts down below. What were your takes? What were your opinions on the Raiders this week?